My name is Adrian, and if you're reading this, it means I've finally found the courage to tell my story. It's a story about betrayal, ingenuity, and how sometimes life hands you lemons so sour they make your teeth ache, but then gives you just enough sugar to turn them into something extraordinary. I worked, in corporate tech, one of those sleek glass towers where people wear tailored suits, but their smiles never quite reach their eyes. I was an engineer, a problem solver by nature. My job wasn't glamorous. It involved long hours staring at lines of code that could either be poetry or chaos depending on how much coffee I'd had. But what I did have was passion, a burning need to create things that mattered, things that could change lives in small ways most people wouldn't notice unless they stopped to think about it. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the very beginning, because no one wants to hear about my childhood obsession with Legos, though maybe that explains why I love building things. Let's start 3 years ago when everything changed for me. Back then, I was working as a senior developer at Innovatech Solutions, a company known for its cutting-edge software products. We were a team of brilliant minds, well, mostly, and every day felt like being part of some grand experiment, the kind where you're not sure if you'll end up with a Nobel Prize or a pile of ash. The project that became my undoing started innocently enough. It was called EchoLink, a communication platform designed to streamline collaboration between remote teams. At first glance, it seemed straightforward. Improve audio quality, reduce latency, add a few bells and whistles here and there. But as I dug deeper, I realized there was potential for something revolutionary. What if we didn't just build another app? What if we created something that understood context? Something smart enough to anticipate user needs before they even knew what they wanted? That idea consumed me. Late nights blurred into early mornings as I poured myself into EchoLink. I sketched algorithms on napkins during lunch breaks, scribbled notes on sticky pads stuck all over my desk, and spent weekends debugging until my eyes crossed. Slowly but surely, the pieces came together. And let me tell you, there's nothing quite like watching a concept born in your mind come alive on a screen. It's exhilarating, terrifying, and deeply personal all at once. But here's the thing about corporate environments: they don't care about passion. They care about profit margins, quarterly reports, and climbing the ladder faster than the person next to you. Which brings me to him, Marcus Caldwell, our VP of Product Development. If ambition had a face, it would look exactly like his. Sharp jawline, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could charm snakes out of trees, or board members into approving whatever he wanted. He was charismatic, ruthless, and absolutely magnetic in meetings. Everyone loved him, including upper management, which made him practically untouchable. Marcus took an interest in EchoLink from the start. At first, I thought it was encouraging. After all, having executive support can make or break a project. He dropped by my desk occasionally, asking questions about progress, offering vague suggestions that sounded insightful, but ultimately meant nothing. I should have seen it coming, really. Should have noticed the way he lingered too long during presentations, nodding thoughtfully while jotting down notes I later realized weren't for strategy sessions, but for himself. Still, I trusted him, trusted the system, because isn't that what we're taught? Play by the rules, put in the work, and eventually you'll get rewarded. Shows what I knew. Things escalated quickly after the first prototype demo. Our team gathered in the conference room, huddled around the table like kids showing off a science fair project. When I clicked through the features, explaining how EchoLink adapted to user behavior and optimized workflows dynamically, the room went silent. Not the awkward kind of silence, but the kind where everyone leans forward slightly, eyebrows raised, genuinely impressed. Even Marcus looked stunned, for about 2 seconds before his expression shifted into something unreadable. "That's impressive," he said finally, clapping slowly. His tone was measured, almost cautious. "Great work, Adrian." And just like that, the meeting ended. Or so I thought. A week later, disaster struck. I arrived at the office to find my workstation wiped clean. No files, no backups, no trace of the months of labor I'd poured into EchoLink. Panic set in immediately. I flagged down IT, who confirmed the worst. Someone had remotely deleted everything tied to my account. Every line of code, every design mock-up, every bit of documentation, it was all gone. I stormed into Marcus's office without knocking. He didn't look surprised to see me. "What happened to my files?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Adrian, calm down. Accidents happen. Accidents. I repeated, incredulous. This wasn't an accident. Look, he said, standing up and walking around his desk. His tone softened, almost sympathetic. I know how hard you've worked on this project, but sometimes sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. You understand that, don't you? It hit me then, like a punch to the gut. He hadn't just erased my work. He intended to claim it as his own. All those late nights, all that sweat and frustration, reduced to nothing more than a stepping stone for his career. I left his office shaking, anger bubbling beneath my skin. But anger alone wouldn't fix this. I needed proof. So I started digging. Carefully, quietly. I sifted through old emails, archived documents, anything that might tie Marcus to the deletion. Days turned into weeks, and just when I thought I'd hit a dead end, I stumbled upon something buried deep in the server logs, a time-stamped record of Marcus accessing my files moments before they vanished. It wasn't enough to confront him directly, though. Not yet. I needed leverage. Something undeniable. That's when inspiration struck. During my research, I discovered a loophole in the company's patent policy. Any employee could file for intellectual property rights on behalf of the company, provided they had sufficient evidence of original contribution. It was risky, but it was also my only shot. So I did it. I filed for a provisional patent under Innovateka's name, listing myself as the sole inventor of Echolink. It wasn't technically legal. I hadn't cleared it with HR or legal counsel. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Once the paperwork was submitted, I waited, holding my breath. Word spread fast within the company. Rumors swirled about who had filed the patent and why. Marcus, predictably, was livid. He called me into his office again, his usual composure cracking under the weight of fury. You think you're clever, don't you? He spat, slamming a copy of the patent application onto his desk. Do you have any idea what you've done? I protected my work, I replied, evenly meeting his gaze. Something you tried to steal. His lips curled into a sneer. You'll regret this. Mark my words. For a moment, I believed him. Fear crept in, whispering doubts into my ear. But then I remembered the countless hours I'd spent creating Echolink, the sleepless nights, the sheer determination to bring something meaningful into existence. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. As the days passed, the situation grew increasingly tense. Upper management launched an internal investigation, poring over records and interviewing employees. Meanwhile, I kept my head down, focusing on documenting every interaction I'd ever had with Marcus regarding Echolink. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, but I refused to buckle. Then came the email that changed everything. It was short, concise, and sent directly to my inbox. Adrian, congratulations on taking ownership of your creation. Your courage inspires us all. Keep fighting. No signature, no sender information. Just those few sentences, delivered anonymously. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a glimmer of hope. Someone out there believed in me. Someone saw the truth. But the battle was far from over. As the investigation dragged on, whispers of corporate sabotage began to circulate. Whose side would the company take? Would they protect their golden boy, or would they acknowledge the theft and hold Marcus accountable? And what about me? Could I survive the fallout regardless of the outcome? These questions haunted me daily, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. Yet, amidst the chaos, one thing remained clear. I couldn't give up. Not now. Not after everything I'd sacrificed to get here. Because sometimes standing up for yourself isn't just about winning. It's about proving to others and to yourself that you're worth fighting for. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Every step I took was deliberate, measured, and fraught with the knowledge that one misstep could send me plummeting into ruin. The internal investigation dragged on, its pace agonizingly slow. Upper management seemed torn between protecting their golden boy, Marcus, and acknowledging the glaring evidence stacked against him. Meanwhile, I became a pariah in the office, a ghost haunting the hallways, avoided by colleagues who didn't want to be caught on the wrong side of the brewing storm. It wasn't just the isolation that wore me down. It was the constant second-guessing. Was filing for the patent the right move? Had I overplayed my hand? At night, lying awake in bed, I replayed every conversation, every interaction with Marcus, searching for something I might have missed. But no matter how many times I dissected the past, one truth remained undeniable. He had tried to steal my work. And if I let him get away with it, what would stop him, or anyone else, from doing it again? Still, doubt has a way of creeping in when you least expect it. One particularly grueling day, after hours of answering probing questions from HR investigators, I found myself sitting alone in the break room, staring blankly at a cup of coffee gone cold. That's when she walked in, Rachel Chen, one of the junior developers on our team. She hesitated for a moment, then slid into the chair across from me. "You okay?" she asked quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I shrugged, not trusting myself to speak without sounding bitter or defeated. Rachel wasn't exactly a close friend. We'd exchanged pleasantries during team meetings and occasionally collaborated on smaller projects. But she'd always struck me as kind if cautious. "You've got guts," she said after a pause. "Not everyone would stand up to someone like Marcus." Her words caught me off guard. For weeks, I'd felt like I was fighting this battle alone, ostracized by coworkers too afraid to take sides. Hearing even a sliver of support meant more than I cared to admit. "Thanks," I murmured, managing a weak smile. "But guts don't pay the bills." Rachel tilted her head thoughtfully. "Maybe not, but integrity does eventually." Her optimism irritated me, though I knew it wasn't intentional. How could she understand the weight of what I was going through? To her, this was probably just another workplace drama, fodder for gossip around the water cooler. Still, her presence reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone, that maybe, just maybe, there were others watching, silently, waiting to see how this played out. As the investigation continued, cracks began to form in Marcus's carefully constructed facade. Witnesses came forward, recounting instances where he'd taken credit for ideas that weren't his. One developer recounted how Marcus had once claimed ownership of a feature they'd spent months perfecting, only to present it as his own in a high-profile meeting. Another described overhearing Marcus bragging about streamlining contributions from junior staff to bolster his reputation. Each revelation chipped away at his credibility, but Marcus refused to go down without a fight. He launched a counteroffensive, accusing me of insubordination and attempting to undermine company protocols. His narrative painted me as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge, a portrayal that gained traction among some higher-ups eager to protect their star executive. But I had allies too. The anonymous email I'd received earlier turned out to be the first of several messages of encouragement, each arriving at pivotal moments when my resolve wavered. They never revealed the sender's identity, but their words carried weight. "Keep pushing. Truth will prevail." It was maddening not knowing who was behind them, yet comforting to know someone believed in me enough to stay in my corner. Then came the breakthrough, one so unexpected it left me reeling. While combing through old project files, the ones IT had managed to partially recover, I stumbled upon a draft email thread between Marcus and a third-party contractor. In it, Marcus explicitly instructed the contractor to replicate key features of Echolink without crediting me. Worse still, he outlined plans to pitch the revamped version as his own innovation at an upcoming industry conference. My hands trembled as I read the exchange, the implications sinking in. This wasn't just corporate theft, it was premeditated sabotage. With this evidence in hand, I marched straight to the head of HR, bypassing protocol entirely. By now, I had nothing left to lose. "This proves everything," I said, sliding the printed emails across her desk. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock as she scanned the documents. "We'll need to verify these," she said finally, her tone clipped. "But if they're legitimate—" "They are," I interrupted, my voice firm despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "And you need to act on them. Now." The fallout was swift and brutal. Once verified, the emails became the smoking gun the investigators needed to shift the tide decisively in my favor. Marcus's attempts to discredit me crumbled under the weight of irrefutable proof. Within days, he was suspended pending further review, his name tarnished beyond repair. Rumors swirled that he'd been blacklisted from future opportunities within the industry, a fate worse than termination for someone of his stature. For me, vindication came in the form of an official announcement. Innovatech Solutions recognized me as the rightful inventor of Echolink, granting me full ownership rights to the provisional patent. It was a victory, albeit a bittersweet one. The months of turmoil had taken their toll, leaving me emotionally drained and questioning whether I truly belonged in such a cutthroat environment. Yet, amidst the chaos, something remarkable happened. Colleagues who had previously kept their distance began reaching out, not out of obligation, but genuine admiration. Developers I barely knew started sharing stories of their own struggles with workplace injustice, inspired by my willingness to fight back. Even Rachel approached me again, this time with an idea for a collaborative project aimed at improving transparency within the company. "It's risky," she admitted, glancing nervously at the closed door of my new office. "But if anyone can pull it off, it's you." Her faith in me was humbling and terrifying. Could I really channel this experience into something positive? Or was I destined to remain scarred by the battles I'd fought? In the end, owning the patent wasn't about money or recognition. It was about reclaiming my voice, proving that I wouldn't be silenced or erased. As I stood before the board of directors, presenting EchoLink as my creation, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a quiet assurance that I'd done the right thing no matter the cost. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just as I thought the worst was behind me, a new challenge emerged. One that would test not only my resilience, but also my ability to trust again. Because sometimes winning the war doesn't mean the battle is over. Sometimes it's only the beginning. The months that followed were a whirlwind of change, both personal and professional. With Marcus out of the picture, his career effectively dismantled by his own greed, I found myself in an unfamiliar position, celebrated as a hero within the company. What had once been whispers of doubt behind closed doors transformed into open admiration. People who had previously avoided me now sought my advice, eager to learn from someone who had dared to stand up against injustice. Innovatech Solutions, eager to repair its tarnished reputation after the scandal, offered me a leadership role overseeing a new division dedicated to fostering innovation and ethical practices. It was a bold move for them, but one I welcomed with cautious optimism. The position came with resources, autonomy, and most importantly, a chance to create real change, not just for myself, but for others who might face similar challenges in the future. Rachel became my first hire. Together, we spearheaded initiatives aimed at promoting transparency and accountability within the company. We implemented systems to ensure proper credit for contributions, created mentorship programs for junior developers, and even launched workshops on navigating workplace politics. Slowly but surely, the culture began to shift. Developers felt empowered to share their ideas without fear of being overshadowed or exploited. For the first time in years, Innovatech buzzed with genuine excitement rather than stifling competition. As for EchoLink, it flourished under my guidance. Once completed, the platform revolutionized remote collaboration, not only within our company but across industries worldwide. Its success earned me accolades, speaking engagements, and invitations to prestigious tech conferences. Yet none of those achievements compared to the satisfaction of knowing that I'd built something meaningful, something born out of struggle and perseverance. But perhaps the greatest reward came in the form of closure. One evening, as I sat in my office reviewing feedback from beta testers, there was a soft knock at the door. Standing there was Rachel, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've been working late again," she said with a grin, handing me one of the cups. "I figured you could use this." We ended up talking for hours, long after the rest of the building had emptied. She shared her dreams of starting her own tech company someday, inspired by what she'd seen me accomplish. I listened intently, offering guidance where I could, feeling a sense of pride in knowing I'd helped nurture her confidence. That night, as I walked home beneath a canopy of stars, I realized something profound. Happiness wasn't about erasing the scars of the past. It was about letting them remind me of how far I'd come. The betrayal, the sleepless nights, the moments of doubt, they had all shaped me into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And then, almost as if life itself wanted to seal the deal on my redemption arc, I received an email the next morning from the anonymous supporter who had sent me those encouraging messages during the darkest days of my fight. This time they included their name, Daniel Harper, a former colleague who had left Innovatech years ago after witnessing similar injustices firsthand. He wrote, *Adrian, I wish I could say I'm surprised by everything you've achieved, but deep down, I always knew you'd rise above. Your courage has inspired countless others, including me. Let's grab coffee sometime. I'd love to hear more about your journey. Asterisk. Attached to the email was a photo of him, smiling warmly, looking every bit the ally he'd proven himself to be. My heart swelled with gratitude, not because I needed validation, but because it reminded me that even in the loneliest moments, I hadn't truly been alone. Over the following months, Daniel and I grew close. Our friendship blossomed into something deeper, rooted in mutual respect and shared values. He introduced me to a world beyond corporate politics, a world where creativity thrived untethered by fear or greed. Together, we dreamed of launching a startup focused on ethical technology solutions, a venture that would combine my passion for innovation with his vision for integrity. When the day finally came to step away from Innovatech and embark on this new chapter, I did so with a heart full of hope and purpose. The board threw me a farewell party, complete with heartfelt speeches and a standing ovation. As I looked around the room at the faces of colleagues who had once doubted me, and now stood firmly in my corner, I couldn't help but smile. Life had taken me through fire and ash, but it had also given me wings. And as I walked out of that glass tower for the last time, ready to soar toward whatever lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain. I owned my story now. Every triumph, every failure, every lesson learned, it was mine, and no one could ever take that away from me. In the end, justice wasn't just about reclaiming what was stolen. It was about building something better from the ashes, something enduring, something beautiful, and that, I decided, was worth every battle,